Hey friends, welcome back to the Gentle and Lily Co podcast. I'm Addie, your host, and today we'll be talking about the idea of pausing everything. And my guest today on the podcast is my friend Nick Balera. And so Nick, welcome to the podcast today.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me. You got a good light here. I got no
Yeah,
sun, clouds,
I
natural
know.
light.
Yeah, we
I'm
love the
glad
natural light.
because I didn't want a bunch of shadows over my face.
Yes, I appreciate that. It's not a dark closet somewhere. It's really
Oh
cool.
no. I got floor to ceiling windows, so
Yeah.
it's a small space, but it's a
Hey.
pretty space.
Yeah, we make whatever works. But Nick, just honestly, so great to have you on the podcast. And for our friends who are new here or who don't know you, but just share a little bit about what this season of life looks like for you right now.
Yeah, the season of life. So I just finished a year from moving out to Nashville from the West Coast, originally from Washington, and so big change. There's no ocean here, no
Oh,
evergreen forests,
yeah.
and not really any mountains.
No,
At
in
least
your
not in
mind,
Middle
yeah,
Tennessee. I mean,
yeah.
there's like the Smoky Mountains. I mean, but
Right.
they're still not mountains in my book, but
Yeah. Me, they're mountains
um,
from Indiana. They're mountains, but
oh yeah,
the
anything's a mountain
PNW.
for you.
Yeah.
Any little dirt hill
Hill.
is a mountain
Oh,
for Indiana.
that's fair. Touche.
But yeah, so yeah, just finished the year moving out here. Last year I was going back and forth all year round just because all my client work was still on the West Coast, and so that was a long and crazy year. Plus, there was a lot of other things I was, doing and pursuing last year. And so this year it's nice because like I decided to not continue some certain contracts that had me physically have to be on the West Coast periodically, and so it allowed me just to be present here and build kind of the things I wanted to build here from community or work or just all these different ideas that and they take time and consistency and just like being present. And if you're gone half the year, it's like unfortunately even when you're present, when you're there, it's still like it's not consistent enough
Hmm.
to really build into the kind of community that you're trying to build here. And so whether again it's social or work or both, a
Hmm.
mix of both, but either or, it's like so I've been excited just to like I've already, we're April, which is kind of crazy, but
Wild.
yeah, just these last few months, seeing what a change it's been in just the day to day and the week to week, because of that, being able just to be here full time and not split. So
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's a huge change. I mean,
yeah,
West Coast, East Coast, but also, yeah, Washington to Nashville, huge change, but also I feel like I don't know, that's exciting to be there for 1 year. I don't know, I like dates and I feel like you can see what God has done in a year and I don't know, be at peace and just be like, okay, you made the right call. But sometimes, it takes time just to see what he's unfolding there. And so hopefully that's
yeah,
encouraging though. Like I think it's important to like
yeah,
celebrate everything. We talk about that a lot on the podcast of celebrating the small things, but also the big things. But so yeah, congrats on 1 year, Nashville. That's exciting and
yeah. 1 year, let's go.
stoked to see what the next year holds. So that's
Yeah,
really cool and a lot of fun just to hear a little bit about more what you're doing. And we're gonna get into a lot of that for our topic. And I feel like you have a lot of God stories about how God's connecting you with a lot of people. But first, we're gonna do music of the week. So, Nick, what music kind of stood out to you this week? Even if it's a lot of music, what was maybe one or two?
yeah. I listen. I mean, I listen to a lot of music, so to like choose one or two things, it's kind of difficult. So
Yeah.
like, I think so a few different people released like a lot of people released albums this just
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, and so there was quite a few that came out, and but Aiden King came out with one of his EPs, and which then kind of like I listened to that, and then it made me dive into like some of the stuff he released last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of the songs I think I just constantly go back that he released last year is "Thank You Jesus,"
Mm.
and it's just like it's such a simple song. He records it with the lead singer from Laney,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and so with Paul, and so he it's just really it's simple, right? It's like a
Yeah.
simple prayer, you know. It's like almost the
Mm.
modern day prayer or the modern day reflection
Mhm.
on just like you know we try to say so much, we try to you know complicate it so much sometimes when it's like at the very base of it, it's like we just like it's like this is like thank you Jesus,
Mhm.
and I mean there's a lot more to the song I know, but like
Yeah.
I think I have over the last few years have really loved anyone that's gone back to like
Mm.
simplifying
Yeah.
what we try to complicate,
Yes.
or
Mhm.
trying to like, as dreamers and creatives, we're always thinking about the next thing. And
Mhm.
that's I think a big theme just in my life in general is, I mean, that's literally, I mean, it's called pause. We'll get into it
Yeah.
obviously here soon, but like, I mean, it makes every time I reflect back to it, I'm like, man, the word pause just really makes so much sense every time. I'm like, it really is like the
Every
perfect
time.
word, at least for my
Mhm.
life, and like the themes that happen, whether in my faith or my business or socials or whatever life. And so it all goes back to this idea of just like being present,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And um and not always having to worry or plans don't work out or dreams don't work out or worrying about is God going to fulfill this whatever, or if we're not in the season that we have maybe thought we would be, or like,
Yeah.
but instead it's just like this I mean I was listening to like one of my friends here, he's a music artist, um and he writes a song as well that and his story behind the song is he was in a session, and like a writing session, and
Mhm.
he goes, yeah, I was sitting in a session, he goes, I just felt like I had nothing to give. He goes, I just felt like a really dry season.
Mhm.
I walked out, he goes, and I was just praying. It's like simple prayer, and it's just like I'm here, you know basically use whatever I've
Yeah.
have, like, and then he walks back in, he goes, guys, I think I have a song. And it's just like this idea of just like I'm here, I'm loved, and that's
Mhm.
enough,
Yes. Wow. That's so
and
beautiful. Yeah.
and it's just like,
Yeah.
and it's like it's just
Mhm.
knowing those simple truths. It's like I'm here,
Mhm.
like be here, be present, like
Yep.
with whatever you have, with wherever you're at, like, but you
Mhm.
just show up and however you can, and then
Yeah.
it's like, and then just knowing that you're loved.
Mm.
And if you know that you're loved, like, then like, between those two things, like that's all you need. Everything else will happen how it needs to happen. It'll fall into place. Like,
Mm.
you'll get used in the way you need to be used. Like the right people will be around. Whatever. It's like
Yeah.
that's all you need. Like
Yeah.
whether you're full and on the mountaintop season, or you're on the bottom in a valley or whatever, kind of situation. It's like just show up,
Mm.
whatever you have, and like that's all that you need.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh
and
man.
so it's just like all these,
That's
it's
good.
just simplistic ideas,
Oh,
It's like going back to the
yeah.
base, like let's find what at the core, what matters,
Mhm.
and stemming off from that. And so I think for me, like, you know, that's the kind of, I think, songs that I really love. Like there's another song, it's a country song called Jesus Saves that came out that is by Riley Green, and he's a country
Okay.
artist. So it's funny because you
Yeah.
hear the title and
Mm.
you may have an idea of what the song's gonna be about, but it's really, I mean, it's about this homeless guy that he passes on the side of the road every day, that he finally like pulls over and
Mm.
stops and asks him his story, and he tells this guy's story through the song. And because there's a song, it's a sign where it just says Jesus saves,
Yeah.
right? The homeless people
Yeah.
always like write that, and they're like, and the whole idea is like, oh man, like if
Mm,
I had more space to put on my sign, I would. He goes, but
right.
at the end of the day, he's like, I only have so much space, so
Wow.
I literally just write Jesus saves.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's and it's like it doesn't even have to even be spiritual. Honestly, sometimes it's like they just go, I just don't even have enough room to like
Mhm.
write my story, so
Yeah.
I just write something, you know,
Yeah.
and but stopping and being present and hearing someone's
Yep.
story is like that song I probably listened to it
Yeah. Put 'em
15
repeat. Yeah.
times repeat,
Yeah.
walking around in my apartment just going
Yep.
like man, this song is so
Mm.
so powerful, and it's just by
Wow.
this country artist that
Yeah.
wrote a song about a homeless guy, you know, and it was like
Wow.
amazing.
Mm.
Anyways,
Yeah.
there's a few songs for you.
Yeah, and there's some threads we can pull and definitely some themes
Oh
I
yeah.
think that is so cool and why I love music because I feel like it's such a gift to us, the people who sit down and take the time to, share their talent or their gifts with us because man, it stewards so much to us and like our relationship with the Lord and just reminds us of some of those simple truths and also just brings some encouragement. And it's so cool in the fact that like there's all these different types of music that can be like used in every different season. And so whatever kind of truth you need, and I love when it's, you can go back to scripture and be like, oh my gosh, that's over there. It's just so cool. And I think like honing in on those simple truths and just even with prayer, like I've talked about this in the podcast, my next book is about prayer. And it's like, I think that's kind of honing in on that point of like everyone's invited into a conversation with God. And sometimes we overcomplicate it or make it be this, this huge thing that we have to, say the right words or do the right thing. And that Jesus said, hey, I just want your heart, just come to me, as you are. And so, man, I got to go listen to those songs. So those would
Yeah,
definitely
yeah, yeah, yeah.
be in our
Uh,
music of the week playlist. Those sound so
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
How
I'll
do you,
send
yeah.
you the links for sure for those, so
Yes. Oh, yes,
you
please.
can have those. It was more than one or two. I
Yeah.
ended up going with
I
three, but
love
like
it. This is great. It's so good. And it's kind of cool that, you mentioned a couple different artists, releasing songs. And I didn't really realize that this one of these songs was new from Citizens. It just was like on my Discover, kind of feed and page on Spotify. But Citizens, that band is really fun. I kind of like their take on a lot of songs. They're just like
yeah, right.
kind of Christian, but then it's just like really hypes you up and it's really fun. It's not boring
Yeah,
Christian music, I guess that's the best way to put it.
yeah.
And so I love this title though, Morning Glory, Don't You Worry. And it's such a cool song. Like it's nothing like I was gonna expect or anticipate. And I'm like, okay, I still don't know totally how I feel about it, except I like it. It's really cool. Because I'm like, I want to like go
Yeah,
back and like read the lyrics a little bit more, but I just love even the title, Morning Glory, Don't You Worry. And then this other one is really fun by them. I think it was probably this year, maybe last year. Don't quote me on that, but So Kind and It's Freaking Me Out. It's just so cool. Such a good song. And I really feel like sometimes you can be in these moments where the Lord, you're like, wow, he is so kind. Like you can't believe he sees you. And of course he does. But out of so many people in the world, you're like, holy cow, like this was so specific and he sees. And sometimes you're like, wow, like the Lord can freak us out in the best way of like how personal he is. And you can just like kind of, I don't know, just rest in his sovereignty in that way and his peace. And again, it's even though I can like dig up some of these like, I don't know, theological truths in my mind, in my heart, it's like, it's really a fun and upbeat song that recenter some of those things, but that kind of speaks a little bit deeper. But it's also just like genuinely fun to listen to, which is really cool.
yeah, right.
And it's like really upbeat. So I'm like, these are probably going to be on repeat for the summer. And I'm like, I just got to go see them because I think they're one of my favorite bands now. So
Yeah,
super fun. But this one was new, like when Spotify just like keeps playing different songs and they do a great job. And it's by Strings and Heart. And I never heard of them, so I don't know a lot of their stuff. But again, I love these song titles. They're so cool. It's called Honeydew, and then in parentheses, Praise the Lord. And I don't really like honeydew. Like, I don't know if a lot of people like that fruit.
the
Just
green one, is that
yeah,
the green
yeah,
melon?
it's the
Yeah,
green
yeah.
one.
I
And
kind
like
of
some
I'm
people don't like cantaloupe.
oh
Yeah,
oh.
which was
I mean,
okay.
I don't mind cantaloupe.
Watermelon.
I don't even
Yeah.
mind honeydew. It's just kind of like
Just a
it's
weird
like the
one.
boring
Yeah.
version of cantaloupe.
Yes. Yeah. It really is. And so like I just don't even want to deal with it. So it's just so interesting. Like we have these like preconceived ideas or notions. And I'm like, I don't know what this song is gonna be before clicking on it. And I was like, this is kind of cool. Maybe I might like Honeydew just in this song, which is kind of
Mm,
funny. But it's like again, kind of like a really simple, kind of peeled back song in a way. It really feels like springtime to me. Like it's really fun and perfect for a road trip. It kind of starts slower and then builds up, but it's just this kind of beautiful combination of everything I didn't expect and more, and kind of almost like a prayer in a way too. So it can kind of
yeah.
surprise you. So you never know. Maybe honeydew can become someone's favorite fruit or just a really fun song. But that's kind of why I love, do music of the week because you never know what you'll find. And we never know what God
Never know what you'll find.
never know. It's
I
super
love
fun.
that.
So then for theme of the week, we kind of, I feel like we might have some kind of similar patterns and themes and stuff. I think in your music, you kind of talked about some of these reminders of like not worrying and being present. And again, I think being present is something we're going to talk about a lot in our conversation. But for me this week, I was just reminded on, several occasions of just Jesus' words of just the do not worry, just that kind of going through my mind a lot. And then kind of tagging on to that, for who can add a single hour to his life. It's like, okay, we know that to be true, but it doesn't like kind of remove the fact if you're like in the Midwest this week with all the storms, like you
Oh
might
yeah.
be going
Yeah,
through a
right.
storm. It doesn't remove like sometimes the fear or the anxiety that can be at the present moment, but just remembering those words from Luke, 12:25. And it's like, there's some of those bigger worries of like, okay, is my house going to be okay? Like, are we going to have a tornado? And it's like, yes, the Lord, he's in control of all of it and he can, make it cease to exist. But at the same time, the reminder of like, he's not absent from us in those storms. And it's easier said when nothing, bad happens. But there's also just some like those smaller worries. I'm sure you can probably relate to this, Nick, of like having, different creative projects and you want to steward them really well. And you can be like, okay, do they like it? Like, is this good? Is this on brand?
Yeah.
Like, are we on the same page? And
Yeah.
it's just so cool. And the Lord reassures you from the client's perspective or from your team. And they're just like, oh my gosh, this is better than expected. And they're just blown away. And you're like, oh my gosh, like it's so, I don't know, I think it's so kind of the Lord when He allows us opportunities to use our gifts well to serve others and they're blessed by it. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do. And it sounds so
Mm,
simple, but I think for a lot of us, maybe in our fields, sometimes we can, I don't know, you just have that self-doubt, especially if you're creative. You're like, okay, I've been doing this a long time and you see the growth and stuff, but sometimes we can just get in our heads because we're our own worst critic a lot of times.
yeah, right.
Um, and even just like, just kind of going back to those roots and stuff. So it's just so cool to be reminded just of his peace that he does truly hold everything in his hands and even the small things he can handle it on top of the big things. So that's kind of like a bigger kind of zoomed out theme for me this week.
Mm,
Yeah. What about
love
you?
it. I love it. I was texting my friend. We were talking about this. He posted this word to his story, and I liked it because it was I probably would never use this word in this case, but I'm like, but it was kind of a cool idea. It was like he used those words suddenly, and he goes, "Be ready for the suddenly." And I go,
Interesting.
and I was like, oh, I was like, that's kind
Huh.
of cool.
Yeah.
And he kind of expanded on this, like
Hmm.
he goes, he because he read it from a post, but then he kind of
Yeah.
expanded on that, for
Okay.
himself, and then
Yeah.
and so this idea was like be ready for the suddenly because God can show, can use any moment to
Yep.
make anything happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, it's happening right here and right now and in front of us,
Yep.
you know, but like we move too fast or we're not paying attention or in a blink of an eye, we kind of miss what was just happening. And so like one of those stories that happened actually this last week, like with this friend specifically. So it's right in talking about the storms, right? So we're gonna weave all this
Yep.
in.
Yep. Yep.
So we had the 2 days of storm. So we're like,
Yep.
many of us were up all night watching the radars and all the things. He had to go to work. I luckily got to like get a 4 hour snooze in,
Yeah.
which I lived off of for the next night as well. I'm
Yep,
like,
for sure.
but he hadn't slept at all that morning, and he went straight into work. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh man. And I go, hey, do you need like a coffee or something? I
Yeah.
can swing you a coffee over. And he's like, oh, I'd love that. I go, sweet.
Mm,
And I was like, oh yeah. I'm thinking I'm gonna do some work, and then I'll go and drop him off a coffee
yeah.
after I do some work. And instead, I go, oh, but by that time, it's probably gonna be like it's gonna be
Mm,
like 4 p.m. Like I
mm,
mean, he's still gonna be there, at his work, but like, because he works till 6, and so
mm.
I go, well, let's go there first, like let's just
Yeah.
do that. It's kind of out of the way, but that's okay. So I go and drop him off his coffee, and I get this text this morning. So we're gonna backtrack just a hair.
Okay.
But like
Cool.
I get a text this morning or a message on Instagram
Yeah.
from a friend from like 10 years ago, back from when I lived in Australia.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he messaged me on Instagram and just was, I don't know, out of nowhere. It wasn't
Yeah.
anything big. It was just kind of like a touch base message. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I haven't heard from this guy in 10 years. Like, why in the world is he like showing up on the map? And I'm like, and then I just asked him a question. It's like, oh, hey, are you guys still in Texas or
Yeah.
something? Or, and I knew they moved to Texas, him and his wife. And I go and bring my friend. Okay, so now we're going to fast forward back. Bring
Yeah.
my friend my coffee.
Okay.
I walk into the store,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's the manager of, and so I'm like, walk to the
Yeah.
store, it's him, he's praying over these like two people, right? So I'm like, okay, like probably it's
Yeah.
like probably two of his buds or something that happened to be in the
Yeah.
shop, like he knows them, like obviously you're feeling comfortable to pray in the shop,
Right.
like
Yeah.
with these people. So
Yep.
and so I set the coffee down, I let them finish their moment, and I swing over here to pick up my coffee. They go on the backside as I'm swinging,
Okay.
right? So they're on my
Yep.
backside.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them, right? They leave. I give my coffee. I give the coffee to my
Yeah.
friend, and he's freaking out. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I just met this guy!" Like, and I'm thinking, obviously it's not them, because or else you would have said something, because we were both right there. Like, and he goes, "I just met this guy, and you were the only mutual friend that we had on Instagram, and um, and he goes, yeah, and he's like from Australia or something. And I'm like, in my head, I'm still thinking like, obviously it can't be
Wow.
him,
No way.
because I'm thinking my friend's in Texas. As far
Yeah.
as I know, I, I
Right.
I don't know anything about the last handful
Yeah.
of years of his life,
Yep.
because he's been off socials. He hasn't
Yep.
really been present on that. And he goes, yeah. He goes, what was his name? He's like searching frantically.
Oh man.
He's like Matt. Like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's. And he goes, yeah, well, that was him. I go, wait, what? I go, like the guy that was just here praying with you. You go, oh yeah. He goes, that was right there. And I go, and then so I hurry up and message him. I was like, hey man, I'm like, because he had then responded to me, and he's like, oh,
Yeah.
actually, I'm still living in. Moved back to Australia.
Okay.
And then but he sends a picture of the two of them,
Wow.
these two friends, right,
Wow.
that just met. That
Yeah.
and their story was a whole nother story, right? Anyways,
Wild.
this wild connection of things are happening, and
Cool.
so he ends up coming back, and he goes, yeah, I just checked my phone right before we were about to drive all the way back to Texas. And so he goes, I wasn't even be checking my phone for the next few hours until I stopped again. And he goes, I just happened to like look at my phone right before I started driving, and then he goes, so then I came back, and then
That's
we're
awesome.
talking. We start sharing all these crossing stories and what's happened in the last handful of years and all these things, and he goes, and then you have this like word pause on your hat. He goes, that's a whole, and like that dove
Yeah.
into a whole nother,
Very cool.
series of
Mhm.
stories that he shared. And it was this moment, and then again, that morning, my friend message had the story about the word suddenly.
Yeah.
And he goes, and this is how God works. And he
Mm.
goes, I think sometimes we
Yep.
try to plan it out. We try to plan out these extravagant things for God to work and show up, in which he can and does. And like, as being a big dreamer and creator and things like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
the planning and creating something, it does take time, and
Mhm.
he'll use those. He goes, but a lot of the times, like,
Mm.
it's these moments it's like it's the most authentic,
Yeah.
like it's the most real, it's organic. It's like there's no planning or editing or strategy
Yeah.
or thought that's going into it
Yeah.
other than just being present,
Yep.
you know?
Hmm.
And being like, I always talk about how the way like
Mm.
Jesus was someone who like he loved sacrificially, he loved intentionally,
Hmm.
and he was inconvenient in the way that he loved. And I'm a big believer of those like three things of like being on and unconditionally, but like obviously we don't fully can do that as much as we
Right.
try, but like
Yeah.
but what
Right.
we have to we strive for it for sure. But
Yes, we
like
do strive.
but
Yeah.
but the idea of like being sacrificial with the things that we have, and just being giving and generous and like open hands, but being inconvenient,
Mm.
like that I think that word, people people miss out on that word, because I think a lot of our relationships and a lot of what we do is out of convenience, and it's out of benefit for us, and it's out
Mm.
of like, at our earliest convenience, well, I'll do that,
Yeah.
or well, but it's those you think of like some of your closest friends,
Mm.
they show up for you in the inconvenient,
In the
right? It's
inconvenient
like
times.
you're
Yeah,
you have a
they
flat
do.
tire in the middle of the night and you call your
Right.
friend to come help you at 2
Yeah.
a.m. It's like
Yep. Those 2
that's
a.m.
that
friends.
that's
Yeah.
that's a friend that truly
Yes.
cares for you.
Yep.
Why? And like, why does that make a
Mhm.
difference? Well, they inconvenience themselves. They got out of bed. They could have been like, hey, I'll give you my AAA and hope for the best. It's like,
But
no, they like
yeah,
but when they
they don't
physically get
stand.
up, they
Yeah, they don't leave.
physically like show up,
Yes. Yep.
and take that extra step outside
Mhm.
of their convenience, right? Like,
Yeah.
and and that's how Jesus loved
Mhm.
people, right? He
Absolutely.
stopped and he was present, and he wasn't able to be present necessarily with
Mhm.
every single individual,
Right.
but the people that he did stop for, he was,
Mhm.
he was still, and he
Mhm.
was okay to be like, we'll continue our journey, we'll continue
Mhm.
to get to where we're going, but for this moment we need to
Yeah.
be here for this person,
Mhm.
right now. And I mean, that's a little bit of just discernment of like
Mhm.
when that's the right person in the right time and all that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
um I just liked that word suddenly, because
Mhm.
it's just such a different word. But it
Mhm.
plays so well into this idea of, again, being present and pausing, and like,
Mhm.
because I mean, I think the word pause, again, it's the name of my business, it's the name of all these things I'm doing, but these other words complement so well, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
I can't think of like a better word, but the suddenly not in the sudden. Like I mean like that's how I want to put it or phrase it. Like even suddenly like catches me off guard or feels
yeah.
inconvenient. It's just so funny. Um
Yes, it's
like
like, oh, out of nowhere, and you're like,
yeah.
oh,
Oh
okay.
my
And
gosh. Like
it's
okay.
like, it's the person that shows up at your doorstep
Yeah.
out of like while you're
Yeah.
walking out the door, and you're like, okay, and suddenly I had
Right.
to
Yep.
stop, and suddenly this happened, and you're like, you catches you off guard,
Yeah.
and but at the same time you're like, yeah, it can catch you off guard, but are you ready just to like handle it? Like, and
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, that goes with storms, right? We're talking about
Hmm.
storms a little bit, like,
Yeah.
you know, tornadoes. Let's talk about, if
Yeah.
there's anything that can happen suddenly,
Hmm.
it's a tornado.
It's a tornado. Yeah, we
We
know that.
watch thunderstorms happen, we watch the clouds
Mhm.
happen, and it can pass
Yeah.
right over you. But the thing about tornadoes
Right.
is, that's why it's kind of so scary, is
Just
because
happen. Yeah.
it can be hanging out in the sky
Mhm.
trying to form, but you don't really know if it's going to form or not.
Right.
And so out of its own, out
Mhm.
of its control, it can just
Right.
strike
Boom.
or it cannot. It can just like
Yeah,
float over you, and yeah,
right.
you got the thunder and the rain and all the things that
Mhm.
came with it, but it didn't strike, and so
Yeah.
and that's what's scary is you like, are you prepared for the suddenly?
Wow.
And the thing is like we can't always fully prepare for it.
Mhm.
We can
Right.
I mean, that's why people do drills, right? They have
Yeah.
drills because they're like, well, we have only so much control, and like, how do we prepare for the
May
moment that
Yeah.
something suddenly could happen?
Mhm.
Like, do we have, a packed box for us to like
Yeah, like a go bag. I was
to
like,
go
I
bag,
didn't even
or
have a
it's like
go bag.
pregnancy, it's
Yeah,
like when someone's pregnant, they have a to go
right.
bag
You do,
for
yeah,
whenever it
that's right.
happens, you're
That's
ready to
so
go to
true.
the hospital.
That is so,
And
so true. Yeah.
so there's this like balance of like you can plan only so much,
Right.
but
Yeah.
up until then it's like do
Mhm.
what you can,
Yeah.
and then live your life, and then when this
Mhm.
suddenly does happen, like
Yeah.
know that you've done everything you can to prepare for it, and from
Mhm.
there like just all right, like it
Yeah.
gives you so much more peace in the midst of something that usually
Mhm.
can bring anxiousness.
Yep.
um
Mhm.
and I think that's where a lot of people struggle today, is like I feel like that they don't prepare themselves
Mhm.
well for to handle like um like
Yeah.
storms in their life
Or
very well,
yeah, for a trial. Yeah.
and so
Yep.
and it's easy to fall into things like depression and anxiousness, and when storms happen, and like
Mhm.
I mean I have a bit of a story in that myself, but like
Mhm.
how do you fight those battles?
Mhm.
How do you
Absolutely.
prepare the best you can to watch for the
Mhm.
signs, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
signs of depression is, it
Right.
looks like this. You
Mhm.
start to maybe hang out in your room a little longer. You start to, say no to more, whatever. You kind of isolate yourself.
Mhm.
Same thing with a storm. Well,
Mhm.
look for the signs of a storm coming, right? It's the dark clouds, it's the hail, it's the
Mhm.
whistling of the wind, and
Mhm.
that's when you're like
Yep.
you're that's when you know that
You gotta
potentially a
go.
tornado
Yeah.
could hit.
Yep.
and
Mhm.
and so that's when you run to your room and grab your to go bag and all the things. And it's like, and
Mhm.
and so you can do your best to watch for the signs, but you have to
Mhm.
prepare. You have to be in practice to know like what are the signs do I watch for
Yeah.
in order so I'm ready to battle whatever I can and prevent as much as you can in the result that could happen, right? The damage that could happen
Yeah.
to the house is one thing, but the damage to
Mhm.
your family is something you can prevent
Totally.
by
Yeah.
going to your safe space,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you may have a down week or a down day because of the things that are happening in your life, and that happens because we're
Mhm.
people.
Yep.
But if you're preparing yourself, you won't fall into a deep season of depression if you are preparing for it, right? Like
Mhm.
financially, that's why they have like you never know, like you could get laid off. Like, well,
Yeah.
that's why they say like have 3 months
Have the
of save.
savings. Yeah.
You have a savings for at
Absolutely.
least 3 months.
Mhm.
So because you unfortunately you just never know what happens with the business that you're working for. Like
Yeah.
things happen all the time. Contracts get lost. Costs go up. Manufacturing, or people aren't buying the item, or
Yep.
whatever. Whatever
Oh,
it may
yeah.
be that is
Yeah.
happening to that business, and all of
Yep.
a sudden it's like it may tank,
Mhm.
and it's like, and now it's in a financial
Right.
space. When guess what happens? Well, it trickles down to the employees, and like
Mhm.
the employees they could be the best employee, but unfortunately, like if the business can't afford you, they can't
You
afford
can't
you.
afford it. Yeah.
And you have to be prepared to go like,
Mhm.
do I have it to go back? Do I have
Yeah.
do I have a savings? Do I have
Mhm.
my tools mentally so that I'm
Right.
ready for this? So like whatever the area of life is, like, are we ready for the suddenly?
Yeah. Are we
It's
ready
like,
for this suddenly? Oh, man.
and so it's
So good.
it's the inconvenience and the suddenly, it's like
Yeah.
what
Wow.
those are great words.
They really are great words, and also just like such a good reminder to go like back into the Gospels and look at how Jesus responded to the suddenly or to the interruptions. Like, you talked about like every person he was present with, because he wasn't able to be present with everyone, like you said, but the people he was with, he gave them their undivided, like his undivided attention. Like they were the
Oh
only
yeah.
person there. And so I just think about like, man, like where are areas that we can lean in. And sometimes, as much as you and I probably both love like the good social media can do and our connectedness and phones and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
sometimes we just forget like to talk to people in line at the coffee shop. Like just to say like, hey, what's good here? Or hey, what are you gonna get? And sometimes that can be stretching if you're an introvert like me at times, but at the same
You know, like
time,
that's not a
like
hard thing for me.
I know it's not. So like even though like I am an introvert, there's even the part of me that like is an introvert extrovert. And I'm like, I love meeting new people, I love talking to them. But sometimes I can get so wrapped up in my head. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I can just have a conversation with someone, like lean into the people who are around you. God's created them too. They reflect his image and everyone has a story to tell. And so I echo just everything that you said. I think that's so good. I think if anything, if people are tuning out, like listen and remember the suddenly, like take that away,
Yeah.
remember that if you're driving,
Yeah.
doing whatever. But honestly, I think that's like such a good segue into like you talking about pause everything. And so just, starting kind of from the backstory, Nick, what is pause everything and like how did this mindset or idea begin? And it's okay if you gotta kind of take us back a little bit too.
Yeah, I guess the real brief backstory is that I used to have a studio
Mhm.
in Gig Harbor, Washington called the
Yep.
Harbor Studio. And 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 from there that's where like I moved from being a freelancer and launched an agency.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna build a team, I'm gonna have a space, like and this will be both a physical space, but it'll also like be the hub for our office
Mhm.
and all these kind of things. But I knew I wanted a space to create and cultivate community from.
Yeah.
There was a space next door that eventually I was like, ah, man, I wanted to take over this next space,
Mhm.
move the studio into that
That
space,
one. Hmm.
and then turn the studio that was currently into a coffee shop. And the
Yeah.
coffee shop was going to be called Paus.
Mm.
Um,
Cool.
and I was dating a girl at the time. I was like,
Yeah.
that had Norwegian roots, and so she's like, "Oh, it could be cool if like
Cool.
you drop the e, because that's how they spell it
Yeah.
in
Oh.
Norway." And it's like they don't spell pause; they
Cool.
spell pause without the e.
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And I was like, "All right, I'll dig that,"
Yeah.
And so
I
and
see it.
from there, I was like,
Yeah.
that's I kind of set that word aside for whenever we grabbed a social handle and everything. Like obviously, unfortunately, like down the road here,
Yeah.
the coffee shop didn't happen. COVID happened,
COVID happened. Yeah.
and COVID happened.
That's true.
The the studio closed. The coffee shop
Uh,
idea obviously
yeah.
diminished, at least for that moment. And this whole
Mhm.
thing um of pause was like I just didn't even think about it anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm just trying to make my
Yeah.
business afloat.
Yep.
and and how do we go, I'm taking like steps back. I don't, all of a sudden you're like this space that you created and this business that you
Yep.
created, you're like, okay, do I continue to do this? Do I get another space? Do I keep the same name? All these things.
Yeah.
Well, eventually what happened was that uh people did not um could not separate the physical studio
Mhm.
with the idea of like our creative studio, like our
Yeah.
agency. And so the so the bummer was that like, okay, well, we have to rebrand,
Yeah.
like
Realistically.
which
Yeah.
and yeah, it's like which
Mhm.
made you have to like go back and go, okay, well, if we're going to rebrand,
Mhm.
like let's go back to like you're thinking of words, you're thinking of core values, you're thinking
Yep.
of themes around your business beyond just your services, like your
Mhm.
brand,
Yeah.
and and the word that like originally I wanted was this word honest.
Mm.
But there's a guy in Minnesota that had the word honest studios. And so I was like, which that whole nother story for
Yeah.
another day, but like we ended up meeting up when
Oh,
I
that's
was
so
in
cool.
Minnesota one time, and we're like good buddies now. And
Yeah.
but he had like 40,000 followers, and this he was like a very successful business.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
was like,
kind of
well,
into it.
we're not gonna compete with that word
Well,
or that name. I go,
yeah.
let's move on.
Let's just be
And
friends and yeah,
yeah.
keep going. Yeah.
And
That's
then so I
cool.
was like, oh man, like, I'm still like racking my brain for another word. And then I was like, well, what about the word pause? I mean,
Yeah.
like, we set it aside for the coffee
Mhm.
shop one day. I go, but like, how
Mhm.
does pause make sense for what we do? And then it's like, and so the picture that basically, that kind of came out of it and created the idea of pausing and marketing and things like that made sense was that I was like, well, marketing today can a lot of the times be a numbers game for a lot of
Mhm.
people. And not everyone. There's lots of people that are very creative, and but there are a lot of people that's just like it's a numbers game. It's like get into front of as many people, post as many times, do all, it's all about numbers. It's just
Mhm.
like, and I go,
Yep.
it's like the guy on the street corner that has the big stack of, have you ever been to New York City? Like you pass them
Yeah.
on every street corner. They have a stack of 1,000 of these little stupid flyers, and they just go, whoop, whoop, and they just pass them out to every person that walks
Like,
by. And,
yeah.
and, and the whole thing is that they're going, well, if we pass out 1,000 flyers today, 100 people will buy tickets and go to this show that we
Yeah.
passed out. It's
Mhm.
this idea of like it's a ratio, it's a
Ratio.
percentage
Yeah.
of like
Exactly. Yeah.
10% of the people that pick up these flyers will
Mhm.
probably go to this show because they're tourists and looking for a show to go
Yeah.
to. And so,
Mhm.
and I go, see, that's the thing. They're not thinking about or asking or
Mhm.
like, "Oh, what do you do?" Or, oh, do you want to go to a
Yeah.
show? They're not having full conversations. They're literally just like, will anyone take this flyer?
There you go.
And once I go through
Yeah.
my stack, I'm done.
Mm.
Numbers, right?
Right.
And I
There's no
go, but
connection. Yeah.
no connection, no
At all.
thought.
Yeah.
It's literally just like, let's get them out of our
Yeah.
hand. But when you think about a brand, like a brand, or I mean, you're an author, right? You take
Yeah.
all this time and you've written this book,
Yep.
but the thing is like, what will most likely make people pick it up? Well, it's it's the cover, right? It's the
Yeah.
whole like make the
Mm.
cover worth the context, like or of the words inside. Like that's kind of this,
Mhm.
or don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I mean,
Yeah, people
yeah,
do. Yeah.
unfortunately, that is
Like,
the natural way of
it's the
people
world.
thinking. Is
Yeah.
like
It is.
people instantly are
Mhm.
attracted to a cover
Yeah.
before they get deep. And
Mhm.
so, like, how do we honor
Mhm.
someone's messaging and someone's
Right.
product, someone's service?
Mhm.
Well, they put all this time into this art that, this
Yeah.
masterpiece, we'll call it. And I go, well, how do you honor a masterpiece? Well, like, making marketing make them pause. Right? If you
Mhm.
walk into a
Yeah.
museum, like, you walk around, like, it's the paintings that you see on the side of the wall that you're going like, whoa. You ask a question. Maybe it's because
Yeah.
it's stunningly beautiful. Maybe it's because it's interesting. Maybe it's confusing.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
Mhm.
if you
Makes you pause.
capture someone's
Yeah.
attention to pause and
Mhm.
engage and interact with that, no matter what happens after that, but if you at least captured their attention to get them to
Mhm.
pause, then you've done it. You've done it right with
Yeah.
with your marketing.
Yeah.
And because the hope obviously is for them to purchase a service or a book or a product or whatever, it's like, and but you can only that's up to the consumer. As far as like us as a creative and marketing agency, like our
Mhm.
goal is to get them to engage, and then from there the customer can make the decision, and we'll do our best to help them have that conversation, have that moment in interaction with the business. Like, we're the bridge of the gap, right?
Right.
Like, we're trying to take the customer here in the business, and how do we help them connect?
Yeah.
And once the conversation's happening, like, hopefully the business created a good enough product that they want, like,
That's true. Yeah.
and
It's true.
and but we'll do everything in our power in order to help,
Mhm.
basically facilitate that and help that happen and bring that to life. And so it's again, it's creating the cover for the book.
Yeah.
It's creating the website for the brand. It's creating the ad, for their campaign, or for their new launch or whatever. It's like it's creating these things that ultimately, hopefully, are it's not separate. Hopefully, it feels
Yeah.
integrated. It feels part of it. It feels like it
Mhm.
makes sense that this belongs together, right? The
Yep.
cover is attached to the rest of the pages of the book. It's not sitting over here on the side.
Right. Yeah.
It's not the poster next to the stack of papers. It's
Mhm.
literally encompassing it. It's
Mhm.
covering it.
Yeah.
It kind of holds and protects, and it's the first thing. It's the first
Mhm.
first impression that they
Yeah.
get before they even open your book. Anyway, so it's like the idea of pausing just made a lot of
Mhm.
sense
Yeah.
over the years. So that's kind of the long story into that, and but then bringing it
Yeah.
up to speed to now is like over the time is like for me. I went to school to be a
Mhm.
pastor. Like that's what I went to
Yeah.
school for theology. I will like wanted to pastor a church. I wanted to songwrite. Like those are the two loves of my life. Still are, but like I get to do those in different
Yeah.
ways now.
Mhm.
And it's like, how do I? But I've missed out on the community side
Right.
of it. I've
Mhm.
had the creativity and I've had the fun of being able to meet all these different people along the way, but the thing that I haven't been able to fulfill for myself is the idea of like, how do I build community? And it's like, well,
Mhm.
how do I incorporate community into the thing that I'm already doing without like jumping ship and
Right.
starting a whole new whatever?
Yeah.
And so these idea of like events and gatherings and things like that is
Mhm.
kind of what I wanted to start to incorporate into my business.
Yeah.
And so like right now, like I have this hat
Yeah.
right here. It says pause, and it's this guy, the cowboy, because I'm in Nashville. So,
So cool.
cowboy and a coffee, and this right there. And it says coffee club. And
Yes.
so that I back at the Harbor studio, we did this thing called the coffee club every Monday
Mhm.
morning, and it really was like just a social hour gathering. There wasn't a whole lot more than just like we opened our doors for 2 hours, we poured coffee,
Or
we put a
coffee.
big sign out in
Yeah.
front, and we just was like,
Mhm.
hey, free coffee, come hang out, meet
Yeah.
people. Like I don't doesn't matter who you are, what you do,
Mhm.
just come and or we're just gonna create space for people to meet up
Connect. Yeah.
on a Monday morning, whether you stop in for 5 minutes or
Yeah.
hang out for all 2 hours. We don't care. We're gonna
Whatever.
pour coffee for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
and that became a thing, and like and we grew it in the a smaller place like Gig Harbor, like
Mhm.
we had like 50 people
Yeah.
showing up, in this small studio.
Which is
and
awesome. That's so cool.
and and so it was always a dream to bring that idea
Yeah.
back, but expanding it into not more than just a social hour, but how do we also create this platform to be useful for people?
Right.
And so in this space and time, because it's like, yeah, it's one thing to make some friends, but a lot of people are like, well, if I'm going to set my time aside, like how do we help benefit people's whether it's their lives or their business
Mhm. Yeah.
and so um we finally are starting coffee club here in Nashville,
Yeah.
and we'll be doing it every Monday morning, and it'll be a 90-minute slot where we'll have some social hour time,
Mhm.
like the first part, last part, but like we'll also start featuring different artists and
Mhm.
business owners and
Cool.
people that are just masters of their
Mhm.
craft, masters of their
Right.
industry that can just get to come in and
Mm.
kind of share these different strengths and tools that they have
Yeah.
that have helped them succeed in the areas they have, and hopefully
Mhm.
basically just becomes not only a space for people to connect and learn and grow and all the
Yeah.
things together, but it also becomes a space where they are getting tools for their every day, their every week, while getting to grow together
Mm.
with this same community, and so
Yeah.
in a lot of ways it's like it's like church, but it's like the
Yeah.
church lobby. It's kind of what it
Yeah.
feels like.
That's what
And
it's
it's like
good. It's fun.
it's like let's keep them there a while so
Yeah.
they actually connect and not just like go
Hmm.
on their own way,
Right.
because there are a lot of business groups, networking groups, but they're transactional. They're,
Hmm. Right.
give me your elevator pitch. Hey, we'll connect you with
Yeah.
this person. And it's great and it's
Yeah.
useful and they exist
Hmm.
because they work, but like,
Right.
but I just don't operate out of a transactional space. I'm a super
Relational.
relational person
Yeah.
where I'm like,
Very
I
much.
don't want a stack. I'm
Mm.
like, I don't need 100,000 followers. I'd rather have 50 that are like gung ho about
Yeah.
whatever in the
And
world we're
dedicated.
doing
Hmm.
versus
Yeah.
1,000 that are passive followers that like, yeah, they'll see it and they may click on it every once in a while,
Mhm.
but they're probably not taking part in anything you're really doing other than that.
Yeah. Mm.
And and so we really want people that are actually excited and are going to be able to take part in what we're doing. And so and that's the same thing with like our clients. Like we don't want to put everything on automated systems and just make a bunch of money and sit back and kick back. Like no, like we want to truly work with the business and we want to dive deep and we want to like you wrestle the storms and celebrate the successes together, and so instead of focusing on a large number, we focus on a smaller number of clients at a
Mhm.
time and go really deep with them. And that again, it's this moment, going back to this moment of pausing. It's just
Mm.
being present. It's being able to like not it's not making it's not about ourselves, it's not the convenience of us, it's not about making money, it's not about transactions, it's about
Mhm.
relationship, it's about people, it's about connection, it's about helping each other have a win-win opportunity. It's creating a space that's free for people that like can gather. It's all these things, it's
Yeah.
inconvenient to us, truly. Like, can it bring benefits? Yeah, but
Yep.
that's not the core. That's not the
Right.
core reason of
Mm.
why we're opening up a door
Mhm.
for people to connect. Like, it's really more for them than it is for us.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
why are we doing it? Well, it's because that's just a value that we have, and
Yeah.
therefore it's going to outpour into the community in the best way we know how to do that.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's so great. It's so cool. I'm like, oh my gosh. I wish something like that existed where I live. I mean, in Northern Indiana, there are a lot of creatives, believe it or not, in like South Bend and Warsaw, Chicago, of course, too, but we're kind of just spread out. That's not like one hub, but in Appanee, at the coffee shop I usually go to in Main Street, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and independent creatives. And so I just think what a great opportunity just to get people to know each other because there's already usually like a mutual kind of shared interest of something, even if it's not exactly in the same field, you might be just an entrepreneur. There's just even that. Like not everyone understands living in that way. But what you touched on is about kind of like those relational values and just even like our purpose. And so it is really encouraging when we find people who kind of mesh with all those things together. You're like, oh wait, you're like me. We're in the same boat. So kind of talk about like what is the cost if we fail to remember those values and the purpose that's attached to our passion in our work.
yeah, I mean, I feel like if you lose out on your values, I mean, we're
Kind of
going to use this
rewind.
as more of an example of like,
Yeah.
so if we like when we go to pitch a client, right?
Hmm.
Like some of the clients recently that we've been pitching are ones that have been around for a little while, but they have lost their value. They've
Values.
lost their story. They've lost
Yeah.
their brand. Like, yes, they have the name and yes, they're globally known.
Mhm.
But one of the things that, and I obviously won't, you know,
Yeah.
put a spotlight on them, but
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm sure you probably unfortunately can think of people, that you're like, I don't even know what they do anymore.
Mm.
But so some of these brands, like it's watching their stories like just disappear
Mm.
and the values disappear, and unfortunately, like the kind of customers that you once had aren't like your loyal customers because they're not following along the thing that they once were backing and they once were so excited about, because you've basically like like you don't really have a direction anymore. You don't have an identity. Like you have a product,
But like,
and yes, it may
yeah.
still technically do the same thing, but like the story that goes alongside of it is the thing that people attach to.
Mm-hmm.
Like people attach to not just the number, they attach to the story
Mm-hmm.
behind the brand, right? Like it's like again, if you have I like you can have people that have 1,100 followers,
Right.
but they may only actually have you know, whatever, a 0.5% engagement or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, versus there. But then you can have someone who has, 5,000 followers and have 5 times or more the engagement of the person that has 20 times the amount of followers.
Yeah.
and and
Wild.
and it is
Mm-hmm.
it's a big thing because no matter the number, big or small, it's the people that understand their identity and understand their values that
Mm-hmm.
actually keep people, attached to what you're doing. They're
Mm-hmm.
following along. They're going to join the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you start to lose out on those, you kind of lose out. You lose your following. You lose your customers. You lose your interests because people are no longer they're no longer attached to the thing because you're not attached to your thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of
Yeah.
what's happened to
Yeah.
certain people, and so on a personal note though, like
Mm-hmm.
like I've chased after the number game sometimes just because like sometimes we have to be able to like pay the bills and
Right.
but you know and so there's nothing wrong with doing what you got to do,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a difference between doing what you have to do in order to kind of get by
Yeah. Huge.
versus making that your priority and making that your value, and when you
Yeah.
start to like go, oh man, well actually if you got to get lost in this like financial gain
Mm-hmm.
only success like story that you're chasing after,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually like
Yeah.
you start to lose yourself, you start to lose
You.
out. Oh, you lose out on your purpose, you lose out on the reason why you started what you started, why
Mm-hmm.
you do what you do. Like some of the best brands that I've loved following, like one of them is Elwood is a like clothing brand, and like they've blown up recently in the
Yeah.
last couple of years. But if you've watched their journey and
Mm-hmm.
their story, like they have shown their whole story, and that's become a big trend on socials as well as people going like share your process. People
Yeah.
want to
Oh yeah.
walk the process with you,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were one of the earlier brands that started actually doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very community oriented. They thank their customers every time. They're always blown away. They pull the curtain back behind and let people see the process. And
Yeah.
Justin, who is their creative director, like he has this whole YouTube series now that's
Mm-hmm.
like
It's awesome.
basically helping show people and talk to people about like this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we struggle with. This is what we're trying to problem solve. This is why something may take longer. This is why we made this decision. And he's like just trying to like make it as transparent as possible because people are curious. Those are the questions that get asked. They're like, oh, like, well, how did you do this? Because other
Yeah.
people, they have the same ideas and dreams and hopes and things, and they go, how do we incorporate that into our business? Whether it's a
Right.
clothing brand themselves or
Yeah.
something else, like,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you use like, and people may look at it as tactics and strategy, which in a sense it
Yeah.
is, but like,
But
but but if you, it's like someone that sings without heart. You can
mm,
have a perfect
yeah.
strategy and game plan,
Yep.
and it's still fall to pieces because you don't have the value and heart behind
Yeah.
it. Someone that sings with a pitch perfect, yes, every note was exactly as written, but
Mm.
they had zero heart. What happens a lot of times? Zero people connect with the song.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was perfect, perfectly executed, but it had zero emotion. And songs, people attach to the emotion that's attached to it. And like, well, how do people
Mm-hmm.
sing that way? Well, a lot of times it's because they're thinking of a story that attaches to those lyrics,
Yeah, that
whether,
they lived
you
through,
know,
hopefully.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The
And
person.
so,
Yeah.
and that's how you tap into that motion, right? Well,
Mhm.
now again, going back to your business and your brand, like,
Yeah.
well, if you're excited about something, people can tell.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not excited about it, they're going to be
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's the flash in the pants and money gain. It's a
Yeah.
opportunity. You're opportunists. You're here to take and then to walk away,
Mhm.
and versus like you can tell that these people are excited about what they're doing, excited about what they're building,
Right.
excited about what's happening in their lives, and it's like, and people are going to follow that. They're going to
Mhm.
follow the emotion and the passion and the
Yeah.
excitement and the heart. Like people want to
Mhm.
follow someone that has heart and passion and vision. And so if you lose out on those things, it's like you're really not even doing what you originally set out to do. And people
Right.
aren't want they don't that's not why they followed you. That's not why they bought your product. That's not why they hired you or worked with you or whatever it may be. That's not
Mhm.
why they listen to you as an artist.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden you start, singing about different types of whatever, you go from, I mean, this is like, I'll use this example because it does make sense in the long run. It's like
Okay.
Taylor Swift, right?
Oh,
Taylor Swift went from a
yeah.
country artist to a pop artist.
True. Yeah.
What she was able to still, why she was able to
Yeah.
still be successful,
Mhm.
or at least one of the reasons she was able to still be successful, was because her style actually never changed.
Mm.
Right? Her genre of music changed, the
Change.
sound, but like
Right.
her lyrics and how she wrote and
Mhm.
how she connected in her songs
Yeah.
actually never did, and that's why people continue to follow her, and she's
Mhm.
become, the artist,
Yeah.
that she has forever and will ever be,
Yeah. Yeah.
this global icon.
Yes.
And but
True.
the thing is, if she started writing differently, if she started,
Right.
her lyrics started
Yeah.
sounding, not this storytelling, emotional
Mhm.
attachment processing that she has always been known for writing, like, if she
Yeah.
didn't started if she started writing differently, if she started, you know to going along with the transition to pop music, I think she would have
Happened. Yeah.
lost out. I think people
Mhm.
wouldn't have been continue to be a fan because they're
Mhm.
like, well, you're not really the same artist anymore. And
Yeah.
the thing is, she actually remained the same artist,
Mhm.
even though there's a different instrument playing, right?
Right. Mhm.
Switch out the steel guitar for for just a
Yeah.
regular electric guitar.
Mhm.
You're gonna
Good
you're getting rid of one instrument and replacing with the other,
color. Yeah.
but stripped back, if you she just acoustically
Mhm.
played each song, you can tell that like it's still her at the
Mhm.
end. And so her artistry actually never changed. Her as an artist, her identity as an artist never changed. And that's it, it's the identity thing. I think that's
Mhm.
probably the key word in all of this, is identity. It's about, I mean, that's what you asked, I guess.
Yeah.
If you lose out on those, and that's what I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, you lose out
Identity.
on those, you lose your business, you lose your vision, you lose your
Your
following, you
why.
lose,
Mhm.
the why.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like, you may become successful in one way, but you will probably become unsuccessful in other ways.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
long lasting anything is something that has held true
Mm.
no matter what has happened. You can pivot as you need, but
Mhm.
in the pivots, make sure that your path is staying on the same. Like,
Yeah.
so it's like a lot of people have to venture off in the main path, we'll say,
Mm.
in whatever the journey is. But
Mhm.
a lot of times it's like you do it because there's a detour, but the
Right.
detour, what does it lead you back to eventually?
Mhm.
The main path, the main road that
Yeah.
you were following. And so,
Mhm. That's
and that
good.
has a lot of that, yeah, that has
Yeah.
lots of themes attached to that, take it
Yeah.
however you
It's
want,
true.
so, um, that's my long-winded
Yeah.
answer for you.
No, I think it's good because sometimes we can be so focused maybe on what we feel like we're supposed to put our hands to, but then we get into the weeds of the business side and again, the numbers thing. And I just think kind of going back to something you said earlier of just creating something not out of a dependency to live. And sometimes that's hard when, we're trying to grow it and maybe that is the thing that we sacrifice everything else for. But sometimes we can put so much pressure on ourselves, then it strips away that why, altogether.
Yeah, right.
And it's
Yeah,
like, wait, who am I? Who am I? You just look back in the
yeah,
mirror like, wait a minute, this isn't what like why I started. So never losing that why. And I mean, it is really kind, I think, of the Lord when you are an entrepreneur, when you're just getting started, you can have something else, like as your full-time thing. And it takes time and sacrifice to build stuff on the side, but at the same time, kind of what you're saying, Nick, of like anything that's time trusted and like anything like stewardship takes time, and like we think about YouTube or social media, we can see a lot of these overnight successes and nothing ever is though. Like anyone will tell you that it really isn't. It takes time and commitment as well. And so I think that's good though, just to remember that even with the growth, if it does come and even if God redirects and kind of shifts it, whatever that is, to not lose our identity. And I think that's such a good reminder because if we do that, then, it can go back to that transactional thing. And especially as, followers of Jesus, like, yeah, we don't want it to be transactional. I feel like there's this service always attached to the things that we do and to steward well. So kind of going off that, I feel like we kind of touched on authenticity a little bit because we want to show up as our authentic selves in our work.
yeah, right.
Like, how have you done that? I don't know, just over time. Like, how do you continue to show up authentically?
I mean, I always tell people I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to do it differently.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Because
pretty
I
true.
mean,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
I've unfortunately like seen things not succeed. Like many other people as
Right.
well. It's like I had the perfect plan and strategy and whatever, and I go, how did that
Right.
not work? Or like, why didn't people show up or
Hmm.
whatever? And I'm like, it just and on paper it makes sense, in examples I
Hmm.
see it makes sense, and so whatever, and so I've had those, and people are like, well, maybe you just need to, or maybe you just need to, and
Hmm.
I'm like, that's the thing, is like I don't
Yeah.
uh, like the strategies can change, but
Hmm.
like the heart behind it like can never change, and like I think what makes me continue to follow through is because I always tell people I didn't enter a creative field
Hmm.
to make as much money as possible because I could have done many other things that could have done that for me. I entered a creative field because I want to enjoy what I do. I
Yeah.
want to have passion, and I want to see things, be created, and I want to
Hmm.
help people um, do that for themselves as well. And so I go, I just want to enjoy my life, even if I have little or I have a lot. Like that's not really what matters so much to me. I'm like I've never been like I want a big mansion. I just want to enjoy what I do. I want to enjoy my life. I want my life to feel like I can look back and be proud that I always made the decision that was based off of who I am in my heart, and if I followed my heart in everything I did, like I feel like I can look back and be proud of no matter how it turned out, because I know I gave it my all. I put everything on out there, and I showed up with what I had, and I also have to then like go. I have to trust that, like, even though I don't always see how maybe things are working,
Hmm.
like it may made the impact that you don't even realize it made,
Hmm.
because whether it's someone that indirectly or directly, and I think we get so caught up in wanting to see the
Hmm.
fruit, wanting to see the success, wanting to see the results, or measuring it in some way, and not everything is unfortunately measurable
Hmm.
in a way that we can tangibly see. And I think that's for me a constant reminder, like, um, on the back of my computer screen. I wrote this a long time ago, but on the back of my computer screen, when my computer goes to sleep, it
Hmm.
says, "No dream of mine is worth more than what you hold."
Hmm.
And as a dreamer, as a pursuer of many, many things, I
Yeah.
constantly remind myself to go like it's basically like I want to follow like what God has for my life.
Yeah.
And so when I say like I'm following my heart, like I also hope like when I'm following my heart, I'm actually following God's heart, because I'm
Right.
hoping that my heart is aligned with his.
Yeah.
Um and 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 so when I go, okay, n- no matter if it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, like did again, you kind of use the word steward, like did
Yeah.
I steward it well? Did I put everything I could have? Did I give
Hmm.
everything I could have?
Yeah.
Was I open-handed and not try to force things that didn't need to be forced? Was I just available? It's
Yeah.
like going back to the song of
Yeah.
the day or week or whatever it was.
Mhm.
It was like the second one when I was
Yeah.
talking about the lyric where it's like, I'm here, I'm loved, I'm enough,
Mhm.
and that's enough. And I think that is the simplicity of that is like
Mhm.
I I'm able to always continue to do what I do because like I feel like being genuine is like it's the only way I know how to operate out of. Like again,
Yeah.
I'm not transactional, so I'm not trying to
Yep.
trick someone into
Mhm.
something. I want everyone to win, so therefore it's like, yeah, I do want to benefit because I still need to, in
Yeah.
order for me to see the things that I want created, like
Mhm.
it unfortunately does take finances, and so like
Yes.
I do
Yeah.
still need to take care of myself. Like
Mhm.
you can't be foolish
Mhm.
with how we operate. Like we can be sacrificial and still wise in how we handle, our time and our resources and our energy and our emotion, right?
Mhm.
It goes with relationships, it goes with,
Yeah.
business, it goes with,
Mhm.
ourselves. It's like just it's a whole healthy type mentality.
Yeah.
So I guess just being genuine is the only way I know how to operate out of.
Yeah.
And and I think that's like the, as simple as I can put it is like I don't know I have had seasons, so don't get me wrong. I have had seasons
Yeah.
where I chased after
Mhm.
something else, or I went off path of like what
Mhm.
I really wanted actually in the first place or the why behind it.
Mhm.
And guess what usually happened? Failure. Like it like
Yeah.
and beyond the failure,
Yeah.
it puts,
Mhm.
it gets me in a mental space. It's like it's not
Right.
healthy. It puts me in a space that's
Yeah.
like I'm confused on how I got here. And you're like, oh, and then you kind of think back, you go,
Like, wait a
oh,
minute.
it's actually because I
Actually,
went
yeah.
down this path. And
Mhm.
we can have joy in every moment if we're following God, right? Like
Right.
and and I think that's if we're living out of that, like no matter again, if we have lots or little, if we have success or failures, whatever, whatever you want to call them, like
Mhm.
no matter how things turn out, we can have joy in every moment
Mhm.
if we're following God's steps. Because there's
Absolutely.
our identity is in Him. It's not in business.
Mhm.
Our identity isn't in our successes
Yeah.
or in our works or in the things that we create. Because I
Mhm.
think we get we can get lost in this idea of we want to do these things for God,
Mhm.
and God, we're like, please use what we have,
Yeah.
use
Yep.
us, and like, and it's and that can be such a genuine
Mhm.
desire and genuine prayer, but I think we it's almost like we want to feel like we did something for Him, and a lot of times He's like, just just be here,
Yeah.
just show up,
Be
just be
present.
open-handed,
Yeah.
be present. Like
Mhm.
it'll work out. I
Yep.
don't worry. Like I got it handled.
Got it.
Like
Mhm.
all I want is your heart,
Yes.
and let your
Yep.
actions follow your heart. And if that's happening, like just trust me, no matter what happens, I'm using every moment because the amount of stories I'm sure we all have in our lives
Mm-hmm.
of hearing later down the road that we said this one thing or we did this one
Yep.
thing that somehow impacted this person, impacted another person, and then
Wow.
down the road
Mm-hmm.
it snowballed. It had this butterfly effect, right? You know, the butterfly lands on the
Yeah.
rock that then trickles down. All this thing. It's
Yeah.
like, and all of a sudden there's
Cool.
a whole avalanche happening. You know, it's like, and
Crazy.
but the thing is, like,
Yeah.
we're innocently just going about our way, going,
Mm.
let's just be present, let's do our thing, let's
Yeah.
show up, and give our best, and from there, like, we don't have to worry about the results.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, if I churches can also kind of be this way sometimes. They can get worried about numbers, like, is
Yeah.
there 100 people in my building or 1,000 people in my building, and that doesn't reflect how amazing the pastor is
Right.
or the work that God's doing
Mm-hmm.
in that community or the impact that they're making. Is like, God's not out to, like, play the numbers game.
Mm-mm. No.
He's like,
Yeah.
yes, is my desire, you know
Everyone.
for everyone,
Yeah, it
to
is.
to
Yeah.
understand the love that I have for them,
Mm-hmm.
like, absolutely. But he
Mm-hmm.
wants it to be done in a way that's authentic and real, and people choosing that.
Mm-hmm.
um we're not trying to force anything into play.
Right.
And I think if we understand that, like, the people that need to be there will be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people that want to be there will be there, right? It's going back to having, 100,000 people that are passive versus 50
Mm-hmm.
people that are full on and all
Yeah.
in. I'm like, I'd rather have those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't want a bunch of passive people. I want people that are excited about what's happening and
Mm-hmm.
are all in, because, you know
Yeah.
at the end of the day, those are the people that are truly aligned, and those are the people that will actually make the most impact.
Yeah.
If we want to view it that way, it's like,
Right.
because they understand, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have the same heart and the same passion, and they're going to be behind you. And it's like, we're always worried about what's ahead of us, and a lot of times we
Mm-hmm.
forget about the people that are right behind us, actually,
Yep.
the whole time.
Yeah.
um and because we never turn around, and
Mm-hmm.
we never realize, like, we're thinking, like, oh, why isn't this happening, why aren't these people are showing up, why isn't this, and then and yet we're so worried about what's over there, that we don't
Mm-hmm.
have, that's not here, that's not behind us. But at the same time, we never, like, turn around and go, like,
Yeah.
oh, well, actually, we have these people that are behind
Right.
us,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are ready to catch you, that are ready to follow, that
Mm-hmm.
are ready to, like, be aside whatever is going to happen. And um I think that's one of the biggest reminders, we can forget in so many areas of our lives, is just, like, be thankful for what we have, be
Yeah.
thankful for the people that we have,
Mm-hmm.
um and like, just be okay with, like the life that we live, as long as it's authentic, like, it's going, and it's true and it's good, like, and like, God's going to do
Yeah.
some great things. And again, it's not even for your glory anyway, so stop
No.
worrying about
Yeah.
like,
Stop worrying about yourself. Yeah.
stop making it about so much about yourself.
That's so good.
um
Mm-hmm.
just show up, and just, you know have a peace that
Mm-hmm.
God's, like, showing, like, he's there and he's showing up and he's
Yep.
doing it and he's making it happen,
Mm-hmm.
whether you have your eyes open to see or not,
Mm-hmm.
whether we'll see it in our lifetime or not,
Right. Or not. Yeah. You never
like,
know. Yeah.
so.
I think that's really encouraging, Nick. I mean, honestly, like, I think it's just going back to kind of if we could sum up some of the things of like knowing our identity in Christ, never forgetting that, which means like again, just going back to even like something we didn't even really talk about, but just going and sitting with him, that takes time knowing his voice. And so like all of that time where, we want to plan well, we want to steward well, and like to be able to see people, we first got to know who we are, who God's called us to be. So like that time where no one is around, where no one sees us, where we're really truly surrendering our heart to him and being able to just to go ourselves away, to be present, to pause for people. I think that's so important. But like if we forget our identity, man, usually that happens for me when I take my eyes off Jesus and look at something else, like the world or the numbers, whatever it may be. Like we all have our things, and so it's just like remembering that, and then we'll be able to, that overflow. Because if we're not taking time to be filled up too, like how can we expect to see people? I mean, we're going to be missing people right in front of
Yeah.
us, and so many opportunities that God wants to invite us into right in front of our face. And so I think that's encouraging, and just like following Jesus' heart, we have to know what that is, and just let it overflow into us as well. And so so good, and just like really really encouraging just to remember the ways of how to be authentic, and taking that time to self-examine ourselves, to have that self-awareness too of like, okay, these are some of the things that I think God has, kind of put these skills or these talents in my hands. And so I've kind of, as you're talking, thought about like the parable of the talents, and just, talked a lot about stewarding, I feel like, in this episode, but in this conversation. But it's true. It's like, hey, are we taking it and doing something with it, not for ourselves, but like allowing him to work through us and to be a vessel, whatever that looks like, through service, through stepping up, or through just contributing, whatever it looks like. So I think that's really encouraging, and it's just so practical, I think, for a lot of our friends listening to, which is why I love conversations like this. And so for our final thoughts, we're going to get even more practical, I think, a little bit. Good. Honestly, Nick, like, how are you actively carrying the gentle love of Jesus wherever you go?
Yeah, I think it's the I mean I love interactions with people
Mhm.
everywhere I go. Like I'm one of those people that will comment on the person's shoes in front of me, or
Yeah.
or try to
Mhm.
just make people feel seen.
Mm.
I think is really important to me. It's asking them a semi-personal question when you're checking out while they're like getting your copy ready.
Mhm.
It's just something that like doesn't make people feel like they're just like a cog in the machine, but they're truly a person. And there are a lot of people that we pass by like that don't feel seen, because we move so fast in this world. So
Yep.
I think so that just being that, like just making those interactions,
Mm.
and asking a question or making a fun comment,
Mhm.
compliment someone or something like that. Just simple little things like that. I think that's one thing I like to kind of just do on the daily. I think I constantly try to when I mean I know a lot of people do this, but when you think of a friend or
Mm.
whatever, I always try to
Yeah.
make sure to like shoot them a text or give them a quick
Mhm.
call or whatever. I try not to let that. I'm like, I don't know why that person popped up in my
Mhm.
head today. Whether they're someone I see regularly or not, it doesn't matter. Like if they
Mhm.
popped up in my mind for whatever reason, I'm like, interesting. I'm like, I
Yeah.
haven't thought about that person in a year or whatever, or haven't seen that
Right.
person in a long
Or your
time.
friend in 10 years. Like, kind of like
Yeah,
that.
or the
Yeah.
friend,
That's
whatever.
so
And
cool.
and that's the thing.
Mhm.
You just never know how that will unfold.
Yeah.
And
So
but
cool.
either way, like just be,
Mhm.
again, present in that moment. And I try to shoot them a text or a quick call, and
Mhm.
whatever happens out of it, amazing. But if nothing, they don't even respond. Well, I'm like, all right, well,
Okay.
whatever. So just kind of acting in that moment. I think that's another big thing. I think I'm excited to see how like what how Coffee Club gets reacted to here in
Yeah.
Nashville, and like because that will be a hopefully not just even a weekly thing. I think hopefully
Mhm.
like the community that gets built will become something that people will get to feel like it's like one of the taglines that we have right now is it's weekly gatherings and daily
Mhm.
community.
Oh, that's
And I mean yeah, it probably feels very church like, but
kind of does.
like
But it's good.
I align with those values,
Yeah.
so that makes sense. But
Makes sense. Yeah.
we're bringing church out into the world, we'll say. It's like
Yeah. It's needed. That's good.
And so,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess I'm really excited just to see like the
Yeah.
community that gets built out of that, and how, like how I get, again, using the
Right.
word steward, like how do I get to steward
Mhm.
those people in that community and those relationships that come out of that, especially as someone who's like leading the way in all of it. It's like I am the I don't really like to be the spotlight person, but I am
Yeah.
becoming like I am the face of it. And it's like,
Hmm.
and so I know there's going to be the responsibility that comes with
Hmm.
that. And so I'm excited just to see how that all forms. So that's a more of a what will happen
Yeah. That's good.
one, but I don't know. I don't know if I have a fourth. I don't know if I have a fourth
Okay.
for you.
That's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think those
yeah,
are all super practical and good insight of like, okay, this is kind of a little sneak peek again behind the curtain, kind of what you're talking about. A lot of people doing that of like, okay, it's kind of what you're praying for, and hopefully, steered in that well, which is good and exciting to be like, hey, come along on the journey with me again, which is cool and exciting. And so I think we can all kind of put some of those things into practice really easily and just be intentional. And also because I'm like trying to think, I'm like, well, you can't really be intentional for the suddenly, like we've said. So but like
yeah.
maybe intentional to think about it, and so when it does come up, kind of having that plan, like a mental go bag of like, okay, oh, the suddenly's here, what can I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you put it into practice, it doesn't
Yeah.
even become something that
No.
it
Right.
feels it doesn't you don't feel the anxiousness of the sudden,
Yeah.
right. It's like
Yeah, the first few times. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe for some people, if they're not doing it
Yeah.
regular, if that's not like a normal thing for them, like,
Yep.
but when you put anything into practice, all of a sudden
Mhm.
it just becomes a rhythm of your life, right? Like
Yes.
it's no longer this thing that didn't exist. Now it's like it's
Mhm.
in the circle, it's in the
Yep.
rotation. It's a what's your reaction to it is
Yeah.
natural, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm just going to, like, oh, someone's in front of me, well, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
Like you're not you don't even think about it, you just kind of do it, and it becomes now
Just integrated into who you are.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a rhythm into who
Mhm.
you are and how you operate and how you think. I mean, and
Mhm.
that's why we read the word, right? Like we read the word
Absolutely.
and hopefully put those into practice, so that
Yep.
what that way those practices no longer become something that we have to be
Mhm.
like so necessarily mindful of, because they
Right.
just become part of who we are.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, you know,
Yeah.
that's I mean, make them practices, and then those that way that those
Mhm.
things become natural to you, and they don't become something that feels like such a challenge anymore, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. I think that's so good. And yeah, really, I love that kind of that tying connection just back to scripture. You think about fruit of the spirit, or I love the verse. I think it's either Philippians 4:8 or in Timothy. I always get it mixed up, but yeah, like putting it to practice. And so I'm gonna link that in the show notes because it's one of my favorite verses. But it's like that's why we train. We train and we do it. So then whenever kind of First Peter 3:15, like whenever someone asks you for the hope that's within you, you're able to share like the testimony that's just
Yeah,
inside of you, which is so cool.
yeah,
And kind of just all of the stories I think that have been in our conversation, you can just see, and probably hopefully our friends can sense of just like that preparedness, but like just that time, hopefully like with the Lord that we all have, and just the Lord kind of builds us up in those quiet spaces, when we go out and we go into the world. So that's why it's so important to remember and to gather together, all those things. But Nick, for our friends who are new here, where can they, stay connected with all the things you're doing with Pause Everything? Like what are
yeah.
all the details?
Yeah. I mean, our
Yeah.
website is kind of like is pauseeverything.com, but it actually is a landing page from there you can choose whether you go to our marketing or our pause events. And so, but that's kind of, those are two the same but separate,
Yeah.
and then just like on socials, you can either follow me, because I probably repost most of it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that's just like my name, no spaces or
Mhm.
anything. And then Pause Events is at Pause PAUS, and then underscore
Mhm.
events. And so that we're excited because it's like beyond obviously what we're doing here locally, there's a lot of fun plans for
Mhm.
to be doing some different things around the country, and 1 day events, multiple day events, and all these things. And so there's other ways for beyond Nashville people to interact
Yay.
with us to come. So
Yep.
it is worth following,
Mhm.
even though you may see some local activity on there happening more regularly. Like there's definitely going to be some great things
Mhm.
happening here throughout this year and years to come that will be able to incorporate people kind of across the country and maybe globally. We'll see, down the road.
Yeah, you never know. That's
So
awesome. Well,
yeah,
Nick, just thank you so much for joining the podcast and being a guest. I was encouraged by our conversation, and I know so many friends will be as well. Sure.
amazing, awesome. Well, thanks for having me and inviting me into this. And yeah, always happy to share the
Yeah.
many stories.
Oh yeah, I know you have a ton of them, and it's always good to hear what God's doing and always encouraging. So just thank you, friends, for listening, and have a wonderful week and continue to carry the gentle love of Jesus wherever you go.